Good morning. I'm looking at where things used to be. Okay. My name is Kirsty Dignam, and I'm here to actually look at the energies for the week ahead, starting on the 10th of August 2026, with today's Monday's Musings. And yet I find myself looking at where things used to be because it's habit. I'm getting there, but it's easier. My original camera is down here. Okay, where my vision used to be based is down here. But I'm being encouraged to put my shoulders back and look up, to look beyond what is not even obvious or easy. Okay. Welcome to the week ahead. Welcome to the potential that we are all currently facing and the choices that are there to be made. I was going to say, should we choose to? However, we are eclipse season. Not us personally, but we are in eclipse season. Now, whilst I am a firm believer of finding information, seeking out what we're trying to understand and working with it, there are elements in our lives, particularly over the next few weeks, from the solar eclipse in Leo on Wednesday on the 12th through to the lunar eclipse in Pisces at the end of the month with the full moon. There are particular things that are here to ensure we get on with what we're here to do, that will come through in a variety of ways. I'm very aware that we are in what many call the peak of the Lionsgate energy. We're in Leo season. I'm very aware there's a expanded focus on this particular energy. I'm very aware that also I have my own stories around that as well, being a Leo myself. I'm very aware of a collective frustration, almost, that there's focus solely on light and expression and creativity and what we can do about things, and that's not to say that that's not important, but I'm very aware still, and I will say still, of the analogy I was given for the beginning of this year of youngsters running around with chainsaws, tools that we weren't ready to embrace, that we had yet to integrate, or at least realize that we were carrying. And one of the things I really sensed this morning when tuning into the energy for the week ahead is how open are we to be expansive and actually integrate before running ahead, or at least looking at why we feel the need to run ahead. Things can be very difficult, particularly in eclipse season. Eclipse is where the shadow comes up and covers the light, where our emotions, where the feminine, where the darker aspects of the feminine. Now, I don't mean darker as in right or wrong, or lower or higher energies. I mean denser energies. I mean physical reactions. I mean taking that intuitive awareness that many of us have known for some time and getting real with it, whether that's the current state, and it is a state, of our planet and our climate concerns, or our own relationships, our own health, our own well-being, our own situations. Looking at this honestly, at what we do know, what we've known for some time, but taking it that next step. We're going from the 1 year into the 11 year. We're going from it being about the self to the recognition over the next 6 months of oneness. Taking responsibility where we can for the things that we know in our actions. Integrating that awareness. We can say that we behave in a certain way because of this, this and this, but what are we doing to change that? Are we willing to change that? Are we able to take the responsibility of our own consequences? Or are we going to continue to look here at what was easier, at what we are used to seeing in ourselves, in our relationships, in the world around us? Now that comes with quite a heavy energy, or at least my perception of that is quite a heavy energy, because I'm not into the authority thing. I'm not into the sensible seriousness. However, it doesn't have to be heavy. Maybe that is what you require at this point in time. But it doesn't have to be negative. It doesn't have to be struggles, thank you, endurances. Change doesn't have to be something that happens to us, right? It can be something that we are involved in. But that doesn't mean that we have control over it on our own. And this is where there's been a lot of skew-if misinformation, particularly in the laws of attraction, particularly when it comes to creativity, that when we know something, when we are part of something, it is just our way. And that's not how it works. That's not co-creation. An example, the Lionsgate period over this weekend, where most people are saying that it's at its heightened peak because of the date numerically, the vibration behind it, and it is just because of the date behind it. It's nothing to do with how the stars align. That portal actually began on the 26th of July and peaks a lot later as it comes to closure and just after. So like eclipse seasons, we can make a big emphasis about the eclipse being on the 12th or on, I think it's the 28th, but it continues for at least 6 months. Okay, so the Lionsgate is linked to the Sirius gateway, and it's also linked to the journey of Venus into the underworld. So be aware that it isn't just about one day or one date. However, we may find this week there is one turning point, one piece of information that we are given that changes everything, that unravels everything, that puts everything into perspective. And it could very well, if it hasn't already over the Lionsgate peak, over the 8-8 portal, start to come through round about the eclipse and just after. And we're all going to need to pause. We're all going to need to breathe. Even though the reaction is going to be, for some, lashing out, for some trying to fix, for some trying to change something before it's ready to be changed because it may be uncomfortable or exciting. You know, there's all different sides to this. And it's important to recognise that there's all different sides to what is going on right now. So while some people may have found the last few days incredible, some may have found it incredibly difficult. Some may have found it a mixture of both. I know I definitely did, with some very shocking news for my own health, but also some wonderful experiences at the local market where I was doing donation healings and readings. So being aware that it's not just about dark, it's not just about light, it's not just about beginnings or endings, it's not just about portals that are open or closed, it's a continuous integration through us. Be aware of that. But whatever you find this week is going to be a catalyst for change. And it is going to be something that we've known. It may come through in a way that we weren't expecting, but it's going to be something that we've always known. So whether it is the fires that are occurring all around us that show us that actually, you know, the earth needs a little bit of support from her children, a bit more connection to her children, a bit more awareness in what we're consuming. And I'm going to go there with our clothes, with our AI, with our, do we need everything that we are going after? The other side of law of attraction. Now, I'm not saying that the world is limited. It isn't. It is, like everything, a continuous flow. However, the law of attraction is very much about what we can get. Any relationship, especially that with the Great Mother, is about reciprocity. It is about what we give also. Oneness isn't just about one person, it's about being one together. We're going to start to see that over the next 6 months. We've had 6 months to look at our own stuff and what we may need to be able to do that. Now, what do we offer if we want to expand? Now, this expansion isn't about growth, about not being good enough. And there's going to come a time where the repetitive messages are only necessary for those that don't want to hear what's beyond them. Okay, so if you're finding yourself becoming frustrating with what you are talking about, it's falling on deaf ears at the moment. It isn't being integrated at the moment anyway, either by yourself as you are speaking it or by those that you are hoping to hear it. So feel into why you feel the need to repeat what is being repeated, and then question whether or not you still do. Under that is going to be a deep knowing. And this is the message this week. as we recognize what it means to know. Knowing is a process. Knowing is a embodiment. We can know in our head, we can be aware of something in our head, but that isn't knowing. That is awareness. That is learning. That is knowledge. Yeah, we can feel something, but that is emotional. Okay, we can be driven by something. That is spiritual ambition and passion. And these are all, thank you, elements of fire. They're all elements of fire, and we're seeing that at play around us. Now, the catalyst here is that these elements, that spark that comes into our mind, that feeling that we have, that news that we hear, they're just sparks of creativity. What's important is how we choose to carry that flame forward, how we choose to carry that light forward, what we choose to do in our transformation of that forward. There are a lot of creations that have only got so far and aren't being carried out, and they are having a, I will say, negative effect on the physical, on the mind, on the emotion, on the earth herself. And when I say they're not being created or carried out, they're not reaching their fullest potential. That doesn't mean that they're not going to happen. That doesn't mean that they're not doable. It just means that they haven't reached their fullest potential. And the choice this week with the eclipse coming up as well is whether or not we want to continue with them or make space for something else now. I hear the phrase flogging a dead horse. So we're 11 minutes in, and I'm aware that Instagram does cut me out at 20 minutes. So let's keep going for now. With eclipse season, there is an element of fate and destiny. That doesn't mean that we shirk responsibility, but there is an element of fate and destiny here. What is going to happen is going to happen. This isn't about changing things that are out of our control to change, but recognizing why we might feel that we want to, or more importantly, and I will say it's sheer arrogance that we believe we can. Sheer arrogance that we believe that we can. Some things are meant to be, and that can be really hard to digest, really hard to accept, really hard to stand behind. But we're not being asked to, we're being asked to create with what is. What else is there? Anything else on that to mention? Okay, yeah. I am being drawn to the picture in front of me. I am being drawn to look at an image that is very familiar to me. I am being drawn to look at what I already know that is portrayed smack bam in the middle of my vision. If I look beyond what I'm used to, look beyond what is new, and look to something that holds it all together. And it's the most beautiful painting that I have of a bird, a small crow, being fed by the bones of her ancestors. And I'm being drawn to the vocal cords here. And what I'm feeling, this isn't just about communication. This is about communication, but this is about recognizing that communication isn't just from the voice. Communication is from the body. We can say one thing and be doing another. And that is misalignment. That's not communication. That's not a very good translation of the message that is coming through. And if we take that to what we think we know, are we feeling that truth? Are we driven by that truth? Are we acting on that truth? And that is the invitation underneath it all. So this week is going to be an interesting energy. And you know, it doesn't have to be heavy, but it does have to be embodied. There's a big difference between lower vibrations, 3D vibrations in the negative sense, and embodiment. And we really must start to appreciate that difference if we're going to connect back to our body and back to the earth. What is being shown here in this communication, in the vocal cords of this young child, is first and foremost to recognize we are still very young in what we're trying to achieve, and we don't always know what's best. We don't always know what's best. We don't always know what we want. Now, that isn't in a authoritarian way, but this is that darker aspect of the feminine, or how we see the feminine in a more darker light, in that there will be energies that rise that will show us what is good for us, whether we like that or not. The vocal cords of this young bird are being stretched to ask for what it needs. Now, what it needs, what I'm seeing, is the supply and demand between mother and child, between earth and species, the ecosystem of oneness. When we ask for what we need, it must come from a place that is going to support the supply and demand of the very energy that we are asking from. If we are asking for something from the earth, it must then return something that helps her to provide that. Like breastfeeding, okay? The more we place a child to the breast and that mother feels safe and secure, the more milk she will make for that child. And it is the child asking for that milk that produces that milk, but the mother must still feel safe enough. In the mouth of a baby are signals and sensors that know what is going on for that mother, that will then ask for the milk and get her to create the antibodies that she needs through her. So the creations that we are making this week, do they give us what we need to keep creating? Do they give us joy? Do they give us inspiration? Do they give us truth? Do they give us knowing? On all levels, not just our mind. It's not enough for the body. It's not enough for what we are making. It is not enough for the earth. Talk is cheap without actions, and we're going to find that this week. I've already done a blog for the new moon, and I'll put a link to the audible version. The written version is out tomorrow. Talk is cheap, and the more we do it, the more we are bargaining our beliefs and our belief systems in the world around us. So start small. Doesn't have to be these big grand endeavors. Start small. Go into your local community. Recycle things that you don't want in your home anymore. Start to clear and make space. Start to make those little differences. Look at how often you're using AI. Look at how well you're looking after yourself whilst looking after others. Really be more mindful in the present moment, rather than trying to control something that, let's face it, we do not have control over. All the time we're running ahead of ourselves. Come back to this moment this week. Be with the news that is rising. Be with your body as it experiences it. Act in that moment. Allow that to make the next one and the next one and the next one. This is supply and demand with your own soul. Now, to do so, look beyond what you're used to seeing. At times, look above what you're capable of viewing, and trust the co-creative process between you and whatever you create with, be that source, God, angelic realm, the earth, your higher self, all of the above. For Instagram, I'm going to have to leave it there because they cut me off after 20 minutes. If you want to know how to best navigate the week ahead, I'm going to look into that with the tarot cards over on YouTube for the second half of this video. If not, I shall see you next week. I wish you a safe and happy eclipse season and a wonderful, wonderful week ahead. Take care. So for those of you that are on YouTube, or that have come over from Instagram, or that may be on TikTok, or that may have found me somewhere completely different, I am actually going to work with an AI deck today because it's already been created. Now, I'm not against anything really, but I'm not against things that have already happened. What I'm encouraging this week is to be aware of whether we need more of that in. And why we think we may need more of that in. So this is a beautiful, beautiful deck by Marcus Katz. I don't know if Tally Goodwin was part of it as well, called the Everlasting Tarot, and I'm still getting my head around it. What I love on the front of the tin is this rose key. This key to the rose lineage, this key to the blossoming, the slow, gentle opening of our own senses, our own scent, our own essence. I had the most beautiful thing today that said, this video, I'll get to that, this video that said, beautiful means to be you to your fullest. Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. The thing that I said I would get to, the video that I shared, I'm acutely aware we're all entitled to share what we feel drawn to. The energy, the information that came through today from some of the things that I've seen being shared is it's nothing right or wrong. We're sharing things that are relevant to what we offer or to what we may have been part of. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But again, it's that, are we willing to look above what we are used to? Are we willing to make space for something different to come in from what we are used to? My own personal guidance this morning was to lighten up a little bit. Now, with some of the things that are coming in, that's going to be an interesting perspective. But what I actually got was to go beyond the warrior that is used to fighting, to go beyond the warrior that has become accustomed to peace, which has took some time, to take it to the next stage of the playful warrior now, to fight for fun and freedom. Are we willing to be open, to be expansive in what wants to come through now, in what wants to be shared through us, to recognize, thank you, we are the portal, of course, but we are the platform as well. Many people, particularly on social media or in the family, you know, matriarchs or patriarchs of the family, or in circles of friends, is looked up to for their experience, for their journey, for the things that they have seen or learnt. And that makes all of us, in one level or another, a great platform to embrace something different, to expand, to give permission to others to do the same. Of course, with that comes a different connection to other types of energy. And the biggest question this week is, how willing are we to connect to different aspects of ourselves? Doesn't matter if it's the angelic realm, shamanic realm, creativity, the news, your community. If it's something different for you, you're going to find a different aspect of yourself within it. If you are resisting that, it's your prerogative. It's all of our prerogatives. But what are you resisting? And eventually it's beyond us individually. So you may find you have a great platform in your family to discuss spiritual things. An example, you may find that your family aren't particularly that way inclined in the way that you are, and it could be a damn sight easier not to discuss those things, especially if it can have reactions initially that may not be what you would have hoped for or preferred. However, there will come a time when, as that person in that family, that's part of your role for the earth. It's not about changing other people's opinions or making them only like what you like or agree with what you agree with. But there may come a point where the earth says, do you know what? I'd like to get a bit of spiritual information to this family so they can find their self back to me this way. Can you just be the bridge? And the reality is that's all we are. Glorified bridges. We are hollow tubes. Okay, we are here to allow that energy to move through us. That doesn't mean we don't get to enjoy the process. So of course, what do we need to enjoy the process? And that's our intentions. But this may not be a popular opinion. They are small in perspective to everything that is going to be built on, based on what we would like. Okay, so what we would like is a very small chapter of what is being built as a result of our existence here, that knock-on ripple effect. We are the stone. Yes, the ripples that carry on after the stone stops moving are very impactful to what's underneath the current of everything. So it's not that our intentions aren't important this week. Of course they are. I'm not saying don't manifest. I'm saying really co-create, really expand in that by recognizing that it isn't just about you. It can be uncomfortable. There have been times when I've had conversations with those that I love spiritually that have been very reflected back to me in not the most positive ways, and it can be uncomfortable. But it's not about pushing what we want, it's about planting a seed. And then when we go back to that supply and demand, the earth wants to reach however she wants to reach through so many people, okay? And we are part of that, to allow that energy to move through us. So the more expansive we can be without trying to restrict how to control or understand it, but know it from within, the more she will be heard. So much as this is about communication this week, of course it is. We have Mercury in Leo. We have a lot of things going on in Leo. Much as this is about communication, the Strength card. Think back to the Strength card in the tarot. Who is it that is opening the mouth of the lion? It is the goddess. It is the feminine. It is the mother. It is intuition. It is creativity that wants to be heard. This eclipse, it is the moon. It is La Luna, Mama Kia, that is covering the sun, the masculine, holding that and saying, wait a moment. Listen to what I want you to do. Listen to what is trying to be said here. Much as your version of it is important, so too is the world around us. Are we willing to pause? Because eclipses are about pausing. They are not about setting big huge intentions. They're about taking a moment to pause. Our ancestors would have feared this time. They wouldn't have decided to change their life at this time because they knew that was going to happen. They would have sat in stillness. They would have prayed. They would have been with each other. They would have been a part of a community. Some of them would have thought it was the end of the world, and to an extent we may find that this week, that there are things that come in that change the world that we know, that change our perspective, that change our reality, especially of ourselves. And the biggest question is, are we willing to open up to that? Are we willing to allow that communication to come through us? I'm going to briefly look at the week ahead with the tarot cards because that is what the intention was. However, it wouldn't surprise me if it will be exactly as what has been already spoken of. And again, that is the emphasis this week. We already know, okay? There's a lot that we already know. So we're going to look at the cards, how to best navigate what it is we know. The rose key, okay, the key to the rose here, the key to the unfolding here, the key to the feminine here is to know what we know, but how are we going to work with that? How are we going to create with that? Because the more we do so, based on what is actually real and aligned to what we're feeling on all levels, the more we do so, the more we'll be heard and understood and known. There's a lot of people out there seeking answers, and it can feel very confusing, and there's going to be a big expansion towards faith as a result, and that may not always be the reflection of the feminine that is trying to come through. So be mindful of that this week. We may see a lot more shadow aspects around faith and religion as a result. People that, or not just faith and religion, but people that have sought advice, people that have sought help, and it may not have come through in the ways that have been most constructive for that individual. The reason we're being shown these things, we're being encouraged to go back to our own intuition, to go back to our own knowing, to go back to why we don't trust that, to go back to recognizing that the answers we seek must come from experience also. The awareness in our mind is one step. What are we doing with that? And then what we do with that is how we learn, how we heal, how we move on, how we move through. And then we come back to the same scenario for many with a different perspective of experience and lessons. And that's the invitation. Is it different? Are we different within it? Okay, so I am going to do the cards for how to best navigate the week ahead, but it is going to be short. The intuitive information coming in needs to be more than just one tool. Okay, it needs to be more bodily felt. It needs to be more individually connected. Okay, energies this week. Oh, and how to best navigate them. So we do have cards to one side, and I'm not going to get too caught up in them because they are to one side and they do feel like they're a distraction. I was getting very caught up in a little bit of the rabbit hole of AI while I was shuffling the cards. But in the sense that AI, you will put in exactly what it is you want to know, and it will encourage you to get very streamlined. So if we're going to look at these advanced technologies that we're part of, these structures that are out there that can help us build something different, look at what we benefit from them. and be aware of where we don't. So AI helps us to streamline what we want, to get very clear on what we are asking for, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing. What I'm seeing around me is that it does also remove a lot of individuality. In a lot of the posts, it removes some of the creative flaws, it removes some of the what makes us unique. Keep that balance this week. It's okay to have the answers. It's okay to try and seek out what is going on. But if it's going to take away the creative experience, don't be too posh to push for your own potential. Okay, there was a big movement many years ago, and bless her heart, a lot of it was aimed at Victoria Beckham, which was just awful. I don't think you'd ever watch this, Victoria, but if you do, this is not a hint at what you went through with your own deliveries and your own childbirth, which was just awful. But there became a movement in midwifery of being too posh to push. Individuals that didn't want to go into labour, that wanted to skip the labour phase and go straight to caesarean for whatever reason. Now, those reasons are individual and very valid for each person. They could have been something to do with medical history, right down to being understandably frightened of labour, because it can be a very painful process, especially if we haven't got the support. And that's the thing, isn't it? If we're trying to rush through something, it's because we haven't got the support to be with it. So seek that support, and that may be AI. I haven't got anything wrong with AI, as long as it is ensuring you maintain your creative license and identity. Don't lose who you are in the seeking of external advice. Whether that's religion, whether that's guides, whether that's the tarot, whether that's AI, whether that's family members, whether that's astrology and eclipse seasons, make it applicable to your life. Don't get caught in the rabbit hole of seeking answers without remembering that anything we truly understand or know comes from experiencing it and experiencing ourselves within it. So to one side we do have the Eight of Cups, the Six of Pentacles, the Seven of Blades and the Hermit. I am putting that to one side. However, on the one hand, if things feel out of balance, it is important to walk away from anything that makes us question our own mental sanity, our own mental awareness, our own mental truth, and go deep inside to find that light. Take time out if you're not sure. On the other hand, we do have artificial intelligence. We have, I can't even see it now, algorithm, pattern and prediction, and underneath it the Tower of God. I'm going to kind of probably leave it there. No, make a decision. I'm going to leave it there. We're going to keep this as the reading for the week ahead. Be ready to move. Be ready to be open to whatever is being asked of you. At the market this week, there were so many. On the 8-8 day, there were so many individuals that were coming for healing. And it was coming through in so many different ways as a bridge to their own potential. Be ready to move. Be moved by what is going on. Allow it to shift your perspective, your energy, your direction, your life plan. Let it change things. Whatever happens this week, let it change things, because it is here to help you move on from everything that's been collected. All this wisdom, all this gold, all this understanding, all these lessons and stories and da. Okay, whatever happens this week, it is here to help you move forward from that, to restore balance, to take that wisdom. You can't carry all of this. This man cannot carry everything. So what has he done? He's picked up the one thing that is valuable to him, decided to wear that with pride in who he is and how he is seen, and move forward with that. Balance isn't about giving and taking. It's about holding ourselves steady in the process, being firm in what is important to us, and it will be what you've always known. It will be that thing that has been niggling you throughout all of the experiences, throughout all of the lessons, throughout all of the relationships, throughout all of the guidance, throughout all of the wisdom. So I'm just realizing that mine is very much about the mother, very much about earth, very much about creativity, very much about ensuring that our dreams are part of hers and that she has a voice. Okay, so explore these things. Be open to changing and moving and being moved with them, in them, through them, for them, with them, as them. Don't let the mind, those 7 of blades, don't let the mind dictate how the soul should behave. That's the child with the chainsaw. It doesn't work. That just doesn't work. Next week we do have the Hermit. Go within. Your intuition, your inner self is the AI. It is the advanced technology. You just need to tap into it. Find that light. Go within and be open to the changes that are coming this week in the Tower of God, the Tower of Babel, the changes that go beyond our need for individual communication and bring us back to the voice of the One. Now that can be whatever it is for you, but it's still the energy of the One, which is what this year was all about. And there's a high chance it's not just about us. Take care, and I shall see you next week.